Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a computer programming instructor, and today I'm going to introduce client-side rendering in a Blazor application. So, in the last demo in the series, I showed interactive server-side rendering, and essentially made a little page that did some multiplication and showed how things clicked. So, and the key here is we made a page, we identified it as interactive server, and it was created on the server project of your Blazor application. For the client-side version of that, we are going to put it in the client-side project here. So I'm going to make a new project, or a new page, Razor page, and I'm going to call it CSR for client-side rendering demo page. And make that look a little better. We'll here add an @page directive. And we'll test it out. I'm hitting F5. And I'll go to CSR demo. And we're on our rendering, our CSR, our client-side rendering demo page. Okay, so that works out nicely. So now that we have this up and running, let's take the same multiplication calculator that we had from the other one and just put it in here. Just copy paste it and run it. So we have two inputs. We have a button. It runs a button click event, and it just multiplies the two numbers and displays them. So I'm going to put some numbers in here, and oh, wrong one. CSR demo. So I'll put some numbers in here. 5, 6, multiply. Notice it takes a while to. Well, notice that I'm clicking on this. You can actually see the responsiveness of the button, but nothing's responding. Well, that's because, just like the other pages, the default mode for this page is really a static page. It doesn't become an interactive page until we set its render mode. So you always have to remember to set an interactive render mode when you want responsiveness on a Blazor page. So it's very important to always remember to set the render mode. In this case, we're going to pick interactive WebAssembly. Interactive WebAssembly is designed to work on the client side. And so, whereas the interactive server-side mode will actually run on the server, and so all events that occur on this page will be sent back to the server. The server will calculate what the difference needs to be on the page and send that difference to the browser. With the client side, everything's running on that browser. The code is actually downloaded to the browser, and the browser's running this code. If you've ever heard the term single-page application, which is usually done in JavaScript, this is doing the same thing, only it's doing it with C#. So now, let's try this. I'm going to go to the client-side, the CSR demo, client-side responsiveness. I'm going to put some numbers in here. And now it works. So, at its simplest, it's pretty straightforward. Now there's some interesting aspects of this. Let's take a look at this page. So this is the client side. I'm going to, you can go, one of the things you can do is you can, if you hit F12 and go into the developer tools in a browser, in this case it's Chrome, there's a performance page here. Let's see, is this Performance Insights page here, and you can throttle back the network traffic. So this helps you simulate and see what happens if your page is slowed down. So I'm going to go back to the ISR demo and see what happens. So if I go there and start clicking, we can see how fast the page starts being responsive. If I go to the CSR demo, notice I'm clicking. We'll go past that. That debugger is a debugger comment that's in some of code, and I'm clicking and keep clicking, and then finally click. So this is, if the network's really slowed down, you can notice that this button is very much not responsive until this page loads. So the reason why that took so long is the application had to be downloaded. The WASM application had to be downloaded to the browser before it was responsive. So it took a while for this to actually respond. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, really what we should do is we should probably make this button be disabled. So I'm going to say disabled is equal. I'm going to put a we're going to start off with the button disabled. And so notice with my CSR demo, this button is disabled. Well, there's nothing making it enabled, so we need to fix that. And so what we can do is there are life cycle events, and one of the ones that we can override is if you type override, you can see there's an onInitialize, onParameters set. Should render. There are a series of life cycle events that we can override. The onAfter render is a useful one for us to use. So if I'm going to go and add this onAfter render. So I'm overriding the onAfter render lifecycle event, and I'm going to say btn disabled is equal to false. So once this is rendered, I will set disabled to false, which will mean that the button will be enabled. Let's see what happens. Well, nothing happens. Still not enabled. And the problem is that while that method is being called and while I've set this to false, this button hasn't been re-rendered yet. Now, one of the ways you can get things to re-render, if it's not automatically re-rendered, is to add a call to a method called state has changed. So often, if you make a modification to things and you need the page to be re-rendered, we can make a call to state has changed. So this will cause we'll change this to false, and then this will make this button enabled. So let's see what happens now. Well, the button has been made enabled, but we can't click on anything. We can't enter in any information. In fact, the whole page is locked out. Why is that? Well, that's because status change does is it actually causes a re-render, which then calls this method to be recalled, which then calls status change, which calls it to re-render. So if you call status changed inside on after re-render, it creates an infinite loop and it locks out your site. So what do we do? Well, conveniently, that's what this first render boolean is for. And so what you would do is you're going to say if first render then we will change the disabled state of this. We'll do status change, and then the next time it comes around, this won't be called. So we can use the on after render along with the first render to lock out that button so the user does not use it, but it becomes enabled when it becomes available. So notice that it's, and then it becomes available, and then I can click it. This is not, you could just leave the button the way it was, but what that does is it makes when users click on buttons and they aren't, they don't do anything, it feels like the page isn't working, mostly because that means that the page isn't working. But the code is loading in the background. So that's one of the things we can do to handle the fact that a client-side rendering page tends to be slower rendering initially. Is just like the integrated server one, we can do that. And there's actually no reason not to do the same thing with the server-side rendering, the interactive server-side rendering page. We can bring these things in. It just won't be as visible, but it does happen, is the button will be disabled, or the button is not functional. It's just that it renders so quickly that often you don't really need this, but it's good practice to disable everything until the render happens so that the page is, so your buttons don't click. And you see it happens happens relatively quickly. I'm going to throttle the CPU. And we'll slow that down. Let's see what happens when we run this. And you can see even with a server-side application, if I slow everything down, it takes a while for it to respond. If I go to the CSR demo, this will take. So if we're in slow 3G application mode, and we're loading and we're loading and we're loading. It's good to not have this. Ah, there we go. Now we can click on it. So that's how we can deal with a slow network and address those responsiveness angles. Disable your controls until you have responsiveness. Use on after render. You can do that with both the interactive server and the client side. Realize that with client side rendering, it's more important to do this because it's going to be slower. Thank you very much.